Welcome to I Love This Thing So Fricking Much, a podcast about passion. My name is Sophie Katz, and today I am joined by Fern, an anthropology graduate who just finished their Master of Arts in Human Rights Education. Welcome to the show, Fern.
Hi.
Hi. So, here's how this works. Fern will have 3 minutes to talk about something that they love. This can be a person, place, thing, concept, activity, anything they want. Our only requirement is that they love it wholeheartedly and want to tell us why. Are you ready, Fern?
I think I'm ready.
Good. Got my timer. Now, what do you love so freaking much?
All right, so I am going to talk about Harley Quinn because Harley Quinn is someone who's gotten a lot of attention, especially recently, and that's exactly what she deserves, but I'm going to talk a lot about why I particularly love her. A little bit of background. Most people, I think, know that she appeared the first time in Batman the Animated Series, and I really enjoyed her character because she was fun, she was quirky, and she kind of took no nonsense. There's an episode where she and Poison Ivy are in a car and they blast a guy for catcalling them. Love that. And I just really like her as a character because I think Batman especially does not have a lot of well-developed female characters. And especially as she's gone on, she has her own comic series that started in 2013. She now has an animated series on HBO. She was a big antagonist in the Arkham game series. She's become much more fleshed out of a character, but even from the beginning, she had a PhD and she had this whole backstory with Joker, and she becomes more and more fleshed out. But a lot of female characters, kind of especially in those comics, tend to get pushed to the side or not have a big backstory, which is disappointing. It's gotten a lot better, obviously, but she is one of the most prominent, and I love to see it. Margot Robbie has done an excellent job of portraying her, I think, especially in Birds of Prey. So good. I mean, everything has its own criticisms, but I think that's a really good portrayal of her, that balance of knowing exactly what she's doing and having that idea of what she wants to do and just bouncing off the wall kind of nuts because she is a woman with a PhD, but she is also a woman who has fallen in a vat of toxic waste. There's a balance there to maintain for sure, and I think she does really well. And one of the other reasons that I personally really adore her is she has become an openly bisexual character. So in her comic arc, it starts with her leaving the Joker, which, good for her, bad relationship, and she eventually gets into a relationship with Poison Ivy. And as someone who is bisexual, seeing bisexual representation always excites me, especially in cases like Harley Quinn, where I find it to be quite a good depiction of bisexuality. It's not just someone who is bisexual for the intrigue, it's genuinely someone who has fallen in love with both a man and a woman.
All right. Thank you for telling us about Harley Quinn today.
No problem. I'm sure I missed a lot, but we'll go into it.
Well, certainly there are a lot of different incarnations of Harley Quinn. As you mentioned, she had the animated series, the comics, the video games, her new animated series, the live action with Margot Robbie. Do you have do any of those stand out as your favorite version of Harley Quinn?
I think personally, her solo comic she had from 2013 until I was in college when they changed it over. But I think that version of Harley Quinn is kind of my favorite in terms of storylines and plot lines. But I do, like I said, I think Margot Robbie does a really excellent job of bringing her to life on screen. I think she actually understands the character, which I think is a mistake that a lot of people make in a lot of other media, is not actually understanding what her character is.
Talk a little more about that. What does it mean to understand Harley Quinn?
Well, I think especially you can actually see it, I think, in Suicide Squad, where she's just the quirky person. She doesn't have a lot of background. She's there to be a love interest and a quirky character. She's not really her own character. And that, I think, the difference, even though it's still Margot Robbie, I think the difference is down to writing as well. And also having female directors and producers makes all the difference.
You're talking about the difference between Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Because I think that really demonstrates of understanding Harley Quinn's character and not understanding Harley Quinn's character.
Birds of Prey being, the one where it's about her
Yes.
mainly, even though the title is Birds of Prey, or I know the full title has her name in it somewhere, but I can never remember the whole title.
What is it? The Fantastic Liberation of Harley Quinn or something like that?
Something like that.
But yeah, I think definitely that is a very demonstrative of what happens when you understand a character and when you don't.
And when your focus is on the character, perhaps more than how she serves as a function of other characters' plot lines.
Yes. When you see women as characters versus love interests, for
Definitely.
sure.
Can you talk a little more about Harley Quinn as a bisexual character and what that means to you?
Well, yeah. I mean, like I said, I am bisexual, so when there is representation, I do get very excited. And the way that they did her bisexuality to me, I enjoyed because it happens in her comics. It's hinted at in a lot of other kind of iterations of her, I guess, but they make it explicit in her comics and not and they also do it in the animated series and not in a way that is just like, oh, this was sexy to make two women fall in love. Like, no, this
Mm-hmm.
is someone who has Poison Ivy continuously is like there for her when the Joker is doing his Joker thing, and you know, calling a spade is abusive. And she's the one to pick Harley back up and to support her when she finally does choose to leave the Joker for real. Poison Ivy is there to help her rebuild, to help her find, who are you without the Joker? Who are you as just Harley Quinn? And in doing that, they end up falling in love. And I think that that is much more organic and a much better representation of bisexuality than some other versions that are in other depictions of media. But both her new animated series and her comic, I think, do a very good job of portraying that.
It sounds like a really empowering story, and it's kind of fun to think about a character who was originally sort of a sidekick love interest character getting this much more empowering tale or story that could really mean something to people who are watching someone in a bad situation escape that bad situation and become amazing in her own right.
Oh, for sure. I think a lot of people, especially other women or other femme-bodied people who have been in situations that are less than healthy, that may be toxic, that I think identify and find strength from stories like Harley Quinn's, where she, like you said, goes from just the love interest to like her own character and her own liberation. Like, I think every version where she's left the Joker, it has been like her own self that she's been like, I'm going to do this. She has been her own liberator. And I think that is also really empowering because while she has support from Poison Ivy, or if you're watching the animated series of hers, she's got like King Shark and her sidekicks, like she is the one who is making all of these decisions to liberate herself. And I think it can be very empowering.
Yeah, and even in real life, you need both. You need to be able to help yourself, but it's also good to have a community of people supporting you. That sounds like Harley Quinn has both.
Yeah, and she absolutely also embodies one of my favorite tropes, which is the found family trope, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like all of her family members that she calls her family that are close to her are not blood related, but they're still her family. And I think that that's also something that resonates with a lot of people is having those close connections of those people that you have found in your life and they have become your family.
You mentioned before the scene with Harley and Poison Ivy in the car, just taking out a huge gun and blasting a guy for catcalling them. Are there any other scenes or moments from Harley Quinn canon that just stand out to you as favorite moments?
I know that there is an animated version, like I say anime, it's like a comic where she and Poison Ivy defend a kid from this guy who's harassing her.
Oh, I've seen that
Um,
one.
yeah, that's like one of my favorite like short panels of the two of them together. Um,
Mm-hmm.
is basically beating up this guy who's being really creepy to this girl who's probably supposed to be depicted as about 6 or 7. And that's not uncommon. You also see it in Birds of Prey, right? Where she takes on the kid. Like, femme solidarity is also a really big theme around Harley Quinn, which I have also really enjoyed, because I think there's a lot of like cattiness depicted around femme-bodied people, and I don't think that's fair. So I really love that she has a lot of that solidarity, whether it's in Birds of Prey or in her comics or in other versions. I think that's also really fun.
And there's really a lot to do with, because with a scene like that, you could take a character who is, is a villain. Like, she may be the protagonist of some stories, but she certainly isn't a superhero as we would think of other superheroes. But when push comes to shove, if another woman or if a little girl is in trouble, she's going to help them out.
Yeah. And I think also that's like one of my favorite things about villains is when you show, and Batman actually honestly does a pretty good job of this, like showing villains who are still people. They are doing bad things, but that doesn't mean that they're bad people 24/7. The exception probably being the Joker in my mind, but, you know.
Well, somebody, it's a story. Somebody has to be really bad in it.
Somebody has to be off the rails, right? It's fine.
Fern, thank you so much for telling us about something you love today.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in today. If you would like to learn more about Harley Quinn or our guest Fern, you can find their social media information in the episode description. And don't forget to use the hashtag #LoveThisThingCast to tell us about the things you love. I Love This Thing So Freaking Much is a production of Through the Window Media. This episode was directed by Sophie A. Katz and edited by Melissa Block. You can find us at Through the Window on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or Tumblr. That is THROU the window at all the social media sites. Be good to yourself, be kind to each other, and you'll hear from us again soon.